And now this, our top story this half an hour, the war of words escalating between the U.S. and North Korea. Over the weekend, President Trump tweeted this. Just heard Foreign Minister of North Korea speak at the UN. If he echoes thoughts of Little Rocket Man, they won't be around much longer. North Korea did not like that. The country's foreign minister fired back yesterday, saying in part, since the United States declared war on our country, we will have every right to make all self-defensive countermeasures, including the right to shoot down the United States strategic bombers at any time. The White House later brushed off the regime's comments.
We've not declared war on North Korea, and frankly, the suggestion of that is absurd. Our goal is still the same. We continue to seek the peaceful denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That's our focus, doing that through both the most maximum economic and diplomatic pressures as possible at this point.
Joining me right now is Fox military analyst, General Jack Keane. And General, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here, Maria.
Wow, this is really getting worse. What do you make of the claim that the U.S. has declared war on North Korea and the president's tweet in general?
Well, first of all, we have not declared war on North Korea. Second of all, certainly the president's rhetoric is charged and way up there. I probably wouldn't select those kind of words to use, but nonetheless, listen. For 8 years, the soothing, calming rhetoric of President Obama got us nowhere. What it got to is an advanced nuclearization of intercontinental ballistic missiles that can reach the United States. President Trump has decided to take a completely different approach than what President Obama did. And I don't think we're one bit closer to war than we were last week, Maria, because simply this. The president's main effort is to use a diplomatic approach to put very heavy maximum pressure on the North Korean regime. Economic pressure. He's getting countries who are doing business with him to stop doing business, and it appears he's been successful at getting China's banks to shut down their business with North Korea. That is significant. No president has ever achieved that accomplishment. So it remains to be seen where this goes. What North Korea is trying to do, Maria, is accelerate this program to get it in place before these economic sanctions force a huge downturn in their own country. And then he believes, Kim Jong-un believes this. Now, he calculated this during the Obama administration, that once he has the capability, President Trump and America will acquiesce and accept it, much as previous presidents accepted nuclear weapons pointed at South Korea. That's his strategy. The problem is President Trump is not Obama, and he's not going to accept that. That's the position we're in.
So does Kim Jong-un not understand the capability of the United States? Does he not understand who he's dealing with? I mean, in terms of Trump versus Obama?
Oh, yeah, he has it. I mean, one submarine off the coast of North Korea has 24 missiles on it. Each one of those missiles can go to 10 different targets, delivering nuclear warheads. So we have 240 targets that we could access in North Korea with one submarine. He clearly knows when the United States says the impact on North Korea would be devastating. They know what our capability is, yes.
There are growing concerns that North Korea could attack the U.S. with an electromagnetic pulse, which would cripple the country's power grid. Earlier this month, North Korea's state news agencies indicated that Kim Jong-un and his regime were considering an EMP offensive. So how can the U.S. protect itself from that, from one of those attacks? Are there things we need to be doing now to protect ourselves from anything that he's considering?
Well, certainly, yes. I mean, an electromagnetic attack is actually a hydrogen bomb being set off in high altitude in space. We would have to deter something like that in terms of an EMP attack as well as a nuclear attack. Now, I think that behind your question, though, is what else can we do inside the United States to make certain that our electric grid and all things tied to it, which is every aspect of our lives, would be shut down. The use of hospitals, trains, airplanes, electronic transmissions, etc. Our lives would come to a halt, and it would be a catastrophe in terms of human deaths, to be sure. We're not doing very well with this, frankly. We don't have a government agency that looks at this to regulate it. We're depending on private utility companies, which is what drives the utility grid in America, to take some expenses and put some capability on this. but they haven't been doing it. What they've been reacting to is cyber attack and physical attack by terrorists. This is kind of their third priority. And people have been talking about this for some time. There's much more that we can do. We certainly have the technology to be able to harden our capabilities so an EMP does not shut down this entire utility grid in the United States.
So should Americans feel safe that we are protected despite what Kim Jong-un throws at us?
Well, we're not going to let Kim Jong-un throw anything at us, Maria. We're not going to let that happen. And I know the Pentagon has got all sorts of military options that are on the table, anything from naval blockade to squeeze them, to shooting down missiles, to conventional attack, and also nuclear attack. That's in the kit bag. We are not going to let Kim Jong-un hurt the American people.
Right. Okay. Let me switch gears here, because this morning, obviously, this NFL story is blowing up. Twitter is backing President Trump on a tweet that North Korea claims was a declaration of war. So some users questioned why the social media network did not suspend the president and remove the tweet, because he said, look, they won't be around anymore. Some people are saying it promoted violence. Twitter did not take down the tweet, saying that newsworthiness and public interest played a role. Your thoughts on this tweet from the president, where he says, just heard Foreign Minister of North Korea speak at the UN. If he echoes thoughts of Little Rocket Man, they won't be around much longer.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a direct, violent attack on North Korea. I mean, it's full of bluster, to be sure, and I think it's an indirect comment. I really think it is newsworthy, and it should be out there in the public domain. I'd hate to see us restricting the president's tweets. He's got a right to tweet. He is the president of the United States. There are 330 million people here in this country, and if he's speaking, we probably should be able to listen to what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously he speaks a lot on Twitter. We have another tweet coming up that he's just put out a moment ago, but it's interesting to see that Kim Jong-un is doing the same thing. They're watching so closely, seeing what he's saying and responding immediately.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think this is going to continue for some time, but I am confident that we are absolutely moving in the right direction. And it's not toward a military option. It's towards squeezing North Korea economically, putting more pressure on it, more pressure than it's ever been put on. And we're going to see if we get the desired results, but we're moving in that direction.
If there were a scenario where this Kim Jong-un was taken out somehow, what do you envision sort of the result being? South Korea takes over North Korea? How would that, I mean, China obviously has a big role to play in that, in terms of how that goes. But what would be?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Just carry the scenario out. If we're able to put the kind of economic pressure that at least the plan calls for, where things start to collapse inside of North Korea, and that's certainly what the Chinese are concerned about, but we're on the path to do that. The pressure on the regime would be significant. The leaders, I think the unity around Kim Jong-un would start to break down.
I see.
And leaders would start to look for an alternative. We got to stop this madness. We got to halt it. And that would mean that they would have to take the regime over. And I think China would love to have that take place and put a more responsible communist leader in charge of North Korea. No, I don't see something like that happening that would result in South Korea taking over North Korea. That's not going to happen. That would only happen by way of war. This is an internal change in the regime because Kim Jong-un has raised the stakes far too high, and it's devastating his own economic well-being in the country.
Yeah, it's a great point. General, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much.
Good talking to you, Maria.
General Jack Keane joining us there. And here's the